Hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I'm your host Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we are coming to you from the full into winter, Denver, Colorado.
Isn't that December 20-something? Isn't that when winter officially starts?
I don't know when winter officially starts. All I know is there was snow on the ground this last weekend.
Oh, because there's snow, that means that
automatically all
means
that matters.
Winter.
If there's snow,
winter.
it is winter.
So when it snows in May, is that winter?
Absolutely.
In May, when it snows, you can just wear shorts. And
It is great. One of my favorite things about skiing and snowboarding here in Colorado is Arapahoe Basin ski resort. When you get into like April, May, and even into June up there, like it gets to be where the whole mountain's still open. There's still plenty of snow on the mountain, but it's like 60 degrees while you're up there riding. And so they call them beach days, and people pull all their cars right up to basically where the lifts are, and you can ride right to like the cars, and people just grill and drink and then occasionally go ride and then grill and drink.
That sounds a lot better than regular snowboarding.
yeah,
A Basin is just a big party, like resort thing. Not even a resort. Like it's not a resort. It's like the hillbilly college party ski mountain.
that's my favorite.
It's ridiculous.
Gotcha.
I love it.
Also, we officially made it 44 seconds until you started talking about snowboarding.
Well, it's better than me talking about the Broncos, right?
Well, they lost, so no one cares anymore.
Who were they playing?
They were playing the Tennessee Titans, who are technically in the
Ugh.
playoff hunt, so they're not that bad. They're one of the better teams. They got one of the best rushing things in the league. Anyway, essentially, the Broncos season is in dire straits.
I like the part where that one guy tried to end that other guy's career.
my-
Oh, I heard
God.
about that, yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
I don't normally wish injury on people, but I hope karma comes back around
Yeah.
and that guy blows out both his knees next week.
I
that
heard,
guy.
Serve
what is
him
his name?
fucking right.
Was it
Talib
Talib? Yeah, he just
got
like...
fist fight with him
Yeah.
the next play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and rightfully so, man. That's bullshit. You don't do that.
No. The worst football injury I ever saw, it was like a Bears player in the 70s, early 80s. And it was some like AstroTurf, like legendarily bad.
Oh.
And his cleats got stuck in the AstroTurf while he was jumping, and basically his feet stayed on the ground, and the rest of his body kept going. And you could. Oh man,
no.
it was bad. If you want to see a real bad video,
No, I do not want to
just
see
go ahead
that
and
at
look
all.
that one up.
Is it like a lot of dislocations or what?
It was both. It basically like from at his knees just came off. Like everything that would hold a knee together, just
like,
like like, and it's like it was bad. And
There-
yeah,
Not the worst football injury I've seen, probably not by a mile, but one of the most memorable is from the Broncos. We had a wide receiver back in like the late 90s, early 2000s named Ed McCaffrey. His son just left college and was a Heisman finalist and expected to be a top round draft pick. But anyway, it was in like 2001 or something like that. He went up for this
Never
pass,
forget.
and he jumps up and he brings in this great pass. And as he's up in the air making the catch, the defender hits him, and you can see his shin just go whoop and like bend the complete wrong way in a spot where shins aren't supposed to bend.
I hate seeing that stuff so much.
compound fractures.
Yeah,
And-
and ever since I broke my arm, I've always just anytime I see like I can watch someone get disemboweled and then like strangled with their own intestines. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But then if I see one person finger bend all the way back in a way that's not even right, like even like the double jointed people, like when I see him bend here, I'm like, oh god. Ugh.
But the best thing about that catch was he held onto the ball. His leg got absolutely demolished, and he
Made
didn't
the
drop
play.
the football. He made the play.
He hobbled those final 15 yards to.
Oh no, he didn't go anywhere.
on his stump leg.
I mean, for one, the defender crushed him. He didn't. He
But
couldn't have
think
gone
about it.
anywhere. But he also
Think
the hell
about
out of his leg.
what defender would stop someone who's hobbling. You can easily see his leg is completely broken. They'd be like, I don't want to touch that.
Back in the day, there were lots of guys who I think would not only stop him, they would hit him harder. They would try to break the other leg.
Oh man.
Dude, the NFL used to be so much more
Yeah.
interesting.
No fun league.
Yeah,
Yep.
Right?
No fun
a
league.
couple years ago in I think it was the Azteca Dome in Mexico, in the U.S. versus Mexico. I believe someone got hit with a jar of piss.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Lovely.
and I don't even remember if it might have been their own team because they lost.
That's probably right. It's right now, at least. Anyway,
This is a board gaming podcast.
You know.
I don't know.
You might not know from
You
what we
might
talked
not.
about.
Yeah. Jeff, do you want to transition us into board games with the Bloody Minute?
I haven't played Blood Bowl in a week, so there's not much there. I have a game coming up soon against Nurgle, and I will probably die because they're super tough, and I can't throw the ball, so I can't run past them.
What are Nurgles?
They're, yeah, I guess they are Chaos Warriors.
Okay.
There are different marks of chaos, Nurgle being one of them, and the only one that is represented in Blood Bowl.
Oh, is this David's team?
David just plays regular Warriors of Chaos. They are
okay.
Chaos Undivided.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I should have known that.
Clearly.
Sorry.
There's Khorne, Zeech, Slanesh, and Nurgle. Nurgle is sort of pestilence and disease. They're not undead, but they are very disturbing to the point of where they have like a 6x6 or 9x9 grid that if I pass in that, I get major negatives to my pass throws. So my
Good thing you can't pass?
I can pass. I have a thrower.
Oh, I thought you said you couldn't pass. Sorry.
I can't pass because of that,
Oh.
because it
Okay.
will have major negatives. So I can't run. I can run the ball past him, but he's super smashy and can block me pretty easy.
Gotcha.
So we'll see how that game goes. It'll be my first game against Nurgle.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. We've gotten a lot of people on the Blood Bowl Facebook group. I think we're going to have a pretty huge season for our season 4 and our new rules, just because the new edition's out and a lot of people are picking it up and wanting to play.
Yep. Driving back from skiing over the weekend, Ant was driving from the resort back to the condo, and he put on some Blood Bowl podcast. And it makes me feel not so bad about rambling at the start of our podcast, because from the entire drive from the resort to the condo, nothing was about Blood Bowl. And they even joked on it about how they don't ever talk about Blood Bowl on their Blood Bowl podcast.
I want to say that's the one when we first went to Gen Con, we listened for like 14 hours
Yeah.
in the car. And I think
Well-
it's who runs the tournament at Gen Con that he
Oh,
does.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Or
met
at least
them.
someone from that podcast is there.
Yeah. I met them. They were cool people. Back when Ant won most fouls,
Most fouls
at
yes.
Gen Con. That was pretty impressive. But
It was. They stopped counting because it was like, you won. I still need to come up with a more interesting last place trophy name before
Yes.
it turns into the Jeffy.
it
And
really,
remember, it has to be a better name than the Jeffy.
Yes.
So
so you're gonna struggle, because I actually think the Jeffy is
a great
pretty good.
name.
Oh, God. This is my nightmare.
All right, so you didn't get to play Blood Bowl. What else have you been playing, Jeff?
I played some Feast for Odin.
Yeah, we all played that last night.
Yeah.
You guys played it a couple times this weekend, right?
Yeah. Once.
Yeah. Well, then once on Friday and then once on Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
And then I played some Terraforming Mars.
Oh, yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah,
Sons
we
of
did.
bitches.
What were you doing? That you
He
did-
was playing the
I was
excellent game.
going to try and play Great Western Trail, and then that never
yes.
happened.
That's
Game night
what-
was
what-
an absolute failure for me.
What did you play instead?
code name something?
No. So I started the night before you guys started Terraforming Mars. I started the night teaching a bunch of new players Skull, which is cool
yes.
because I was getting to they were new to game night. Just getting them involved, teaching them a game, having some fun. And I really like Skull for that. It's a good game to teach and kind of joke around at, and you don't have to take seriously. But then we had this big kerfuffle where there was no food truck because their pipes froze because it was 10 degrees
It's cold.
that day. It was a cold Wednesday. So a bunch of us put in a big, huge order to a local pizza joint, which was an absolute disaster. But anyway, so I passed off Skull while I was doing all of that. And I got done with that, and that's when you guys were starting Terraforming Mars. I was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to try and get Great Western Trail to the table. I ended up playing Oregon Trail.
You got some sort of trail at least.
Yeah, there was some.
I have to say, I had seen you guys play that a couple months ago at
Our Old Town, Arvada.
that place up in Arvada. And I remember thinking, it looks kind of interesting, but I'm not really that interested in it. And then
Visually, graphically, maybe.
and then
Yes.
you guys kind of trashed it pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how Ant and Julie picked that game out, but we were halfway through, and both of them were like, oh, fuck this game.
Oh, yeah.
This game is bullshit. Fuck this game.
Yeah.
That game is hot garbage. I will actively avoid. I'm going to start warning people. If I see them about to play that, be like, have you played this before? No? Put it away. Put it away. This is, no,
We should
you don't
just
want
bring
this.
a copy every week to sacrifice to a fire. I have access to as many as we need.
Yeah, no, it's real bad. There's a lot of like rules that aren't explained, like that don't make any sense. They're not.
When do I play cards? How do I play cards?
Yeah.
I'm cold.
Nothing.
I'm cold. How do I stop being cold?
The rule book is the fucking worst. It's not even a book. It's a sheet of paper.
And then remember, not
exploding
one,
kittens.
not two, not three, but 4 different cards that are just, you die.
Instant death.
You're dead.
There's 2 dysenteries and 2 snake
bites. You just die. You
No.
just, no,
Fuck
you
you.
can't
And
stop it.
And you don't take them out based on players or anything like
it's just,
that.
you die.
Yep.
Yeah. So fuck that game.
Yeah.
That's real bad.
Hardcore.
Did you
fuck that
do
game.
the obituaries at all in the back?
Well, no. So Julie was the only one who died, and she did do an obituary. I don't remember what she put down for how she died.
I got dick
I
pic.
think she got dysentery, but I don't remember what she put for it. Ant and I technically won, but because
said you cheated,
Because you
right?
quit.
well, no, because God, I wish.
That's the only way to win.
Yeah.
The only way to win is not to play.
I wish I could drop a nuclear bomb on that game.
No, so there were a couple areas where the rules were very obtuse, and we weren't sure what to do.
A couple, huh?
A couple. And we went. I don't remember exactly like what the situations were or how we handled them, but basically we felt like it was against the spirit of the game where 4 cards just kill you instantly.
Yep.
Like it seemed like a game where really anytime you have a rule question, what fucks you more is the answer.
Yeah.
And we didn't play that way. We played what helps us more is the answer.
Just play it like you'd play Robinson Crusoe. So
Well, except I'd actually enjoy playing Robinson
no, in the
Crusoe.
sense that if you have a rule, question, it's whatever hurts you most.
Indeed.
But yeah, so while you guys were playing Terraforming Mars, I wanted to play Great Western Trail, and I ended up playing Oregon Trail. One trail is awesome, and the other trail is awful. And then we played Werewolf, which was actually pretty good until Dan killed me because he claims he figured out that I was a werewolf. I'm not entirely sure I believe him. I think he just killed me because
Were you a werewolf?
I was a werewolf.
Then I will just go ahead and believe him then.
It's plausible that he figured it out, but I also apparently messed up, and somehow when the werewolves in the initial phase were like opening their eyes and looking around, I missed that Jared was a werewolf. And so at one point, I definitely nominated him in the regular awake session to get hung, and then he was like, well, what the fuck, why is he nominated? So then he nominated me back, and it turned into this whole back and forth thing. There was like an infight amongst the werewolves, but I think the werewolves still ended up winning.
Yes.
Amazingly enough. So
I was one. It was my first time being a werewolf.
I feel like I'm always a werewolf.
Were you a regular one?
I was just a regular werewolf. I killed Dan. We were finishing up Terraforming Mars and packing up and stuff while this started. So I had not been paying attention for a lot of it, and I was using that to my advantage of just been like, who's nominated? Dan. Let's murder you because I don't know.
Right.
But he apparently was the seer, and I was like, yes.
Wait, Dan was the seer?
Or the witch, or
He was the witch.
He was the witch.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because that's how I died. He didn't even... Yeah, no, because... Yeah, never mind. No, Bob was the seer, and we got the village to hang Bob with the quickness.
That's usually what happens.
I mean, you don't have to try that hard to get Bob to be hung in Werewolf in our group.
Everyone just murders Bob immediately.
Well, basically, what the rule is that if Bob's alive for 3 days, you should nominate him because he's a werewolf. If
I
he
see.
dies before that, he's
Probably innocent. He's probably your seer.
If he's dead before day 3, he's not a werewolf. If he's alive, kill him anyways.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
I'm really interested. I'm going to be gone, unfortunately, for the game night between Christmas and New Year's, which is going to be an ugly sweater party. Should be awesome. I hope I won't be there to
what?
facilitate it. Yeah, the game night on the 28th is an ugly sweater party at Rack House.
I guess I'll have to buy an ugly sweater.
I also do know.
Adrian, where do you get your sweaters?
Fuck you, Zach.
Sorry.
But
I don't even know if I've seen you with a sweater.
no, I don't think you have because you don't even fucking wear sweaters.
I just saw an opportunity.
But I won't be there for that. But I'm hoping that Trisha brings. She did a reskin of Werewolf with all holiday themed stuff. So like, there's like Scrooges and
I think I
good
saw a
elves
picture
and
of
bad
that.
elves. Yeah, on Facebook.
Totally was not paying. I did not
Yeah, so
understand the
she's-
concept of it.
She's had my werewolf for a couple days now. She
Context. Gotcha.
reskins slash rethemes werewolf into a holiday Christmassy themed thing for like some kids that she does school stuff for.
Yeah.
Something.
I remember we did that once. It was with our friend Eldar. He did like the proletariats and something else. I don't remember.
Bolsheviks?
Yes.
Yeah, it was at one of his big barbecues that he used to throw back in the day. And we didn't have, so nobody brought a copy of Werewolf. And we were like, well, we still want to play Werewolf. And so, yeah, we mixed it up, like made something up on the fly. And because he's super Russian, that's what we came up with. And it worked surprisingly well. We'd played, that was back in like Werewolf's heyday when we were playing it like weekly.
Yeah.
So we knew all the roles and were able to translate them into something vaguely.
That's impressive.
Yeah, back when I still enjoyed it.
Do you not enjoy Werewolf anymore?
Not too much. Pretty much ever since that I did that 33 person
like
one
3 years ago.
I know, it just something inside me died. And then I was just like,
Did you not do the one at the anniversary last year?
If I did, like, I'll join, but I don't like enjoy it like I used to.
Okay.
So
My biggest problem with it is like it seems like anytime we've played it recently, half of the group that's playing is new, at least not necessarily new to Werewolf or new to games, but new to our group, and the other half isn't. And so then the meta, I think, starts to really get in the way. Like the new people don't really know the meta, and so they're kind of sitting there like quiet, not sure what's going on. And then like all of us, we have things like we were joking with Bob, like Bob dies in the first 3 rounds or Bob dies in the 3rd round.
if you're the spellcaster, silence Nick first night. If you could somehow silence him every night, that'd be amazing. Too bad you can't, but
immediately when I know the spellcaster's in the game and Nick is the first person silenced, it eliminates half of the players from suspicion of being the spellcaster. It's like, all right, it's definitely somebody who knows Nick and knows to silence Nick first. Because he's not even usually that loud, like early. Nick doesn't get loud till mid-game, but people are still like, nope, Nick, shut the fuck up. So the meta gets in the way, I think, a little bit in our group, which might be an interesting discussion topic sometime, meta in board games. But yeah, so that was all I got to play on Wednesday. And then I went up to the condo and I played 2 solo games of Imperial Settlers. They were my first 2 solo games of it. That's actually another really solid solo game.
You were the Romans.
And then the Egyptians.
There you go.
I random drew both of them.
Well, you picked right once.
I did win bigger with the Egyptians.
Told you.
They seemed a little bit more powerful.
Weird.
Yeah, strange. I'm really hoping that for Christmas, Megan and I get a bunch of Settlers expansions and stuff. I want to have more Settlers stuff in my life. And then we were supposed to play another round of Condo D&D, but we ended up having a shit ton of people up there, and nobody was interested in it besides me, Dan, and Ant. And so Ant taught us some drinking games. Oh, yeah, and then we all played. I came back from the condo Sunday, and we all played Feast for Odin.
Yeah.
Which those of you who follow us on Twitter or Facebook know the results of.
I've seen.
And if you don't follow us on Facebook or Twitter, you should. And I'm not going to tell you how that game went.
Adrian won.
Fuck you, Zach.
I didn't win. Spoiler alert.
I didn't win either. So.
All right. Well, I guess that covers what we've been playing. Before Feast for Odin, however, we do actually have news and Kickstarters.
We do.
So.
But not much.
Nope.
Crokinole.
Yeah.
It's got 54K of its 5,000 goal. It's got 26 days left. It's $100 back.
$99.
$99.
And then $15 shipping, so it's $114 shipped.
And it's got 457 backers currently.
Yes.
Including Zach.
Yeah.
It's an old game.
Yeah.
All right, Macho Man.
No, I can't do it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Snap a Slim Jim.
Okay, so totally.
I can't do it accents.
It's totally off topic.
Yes.
But I have played a game called Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
And someone made a sound pack to replace all the zombies' voice samples with Macho Man. And so whenever like a horde would happen, it would instead of the like sound like the bow sound that would be like, oh, a horde is coming, oh no, it would be Bonesaw is ready from Spider-Man.
Oh, that's great.
And then it would just be like 40 zombies around and going, oh yeah, oh macho. Yeah, it's really, really funny. We'll get a video of that later. It's as funny as this is. I played a lot of Left 4 Dead. with Macho Man.
I need to play that now.
Yeah, it was really good.
I feel like I need this in my life.
Yeah.
Yep. But
Anyway,
Crokinole.
Beyblade the game.
Yeah. So it's so it is surprisingly for some people it is 60 on Board Game Geek.
It's like 3 in family.
Yes. It's a great game.
It's many hundreds of years old.
Yes. First time I played it was at the Conclave of Gamers 2 years ago.
Okay.
We started playing it. I was like, oh, cool. And then they had a tournament. And I was like, oh, I'll sign up. And then I actually ended up making it through the qualifiers.
Ooh.
And then, but barely, like everyone had like a point differential of like plus 500 or something. Mm-hmm. I was like plus 10.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
The 2 games I won, I won decently enough. But the one I lost badly.
It was hard. It was rough.
Yeah. And then so they ended up doing seeded, and I played the first guy, or like who was first seeded, and did not end well. But
ooh,
yeah.
So you played like the best Crokinole player within 500 miles?
No. So he ended up getting, I think, 3rd overall.
3rd best in 500 miles.
Yes. But after playing it, I was like, oh man, I really want one. And then I looked at the prices for any decent board. $200 to $300.
They're big boards.
They're big. They're wooden, and it has to be like precisely made because it's
very flat.
Yeah, very flat. Specific type of wood works best or something.
Because you're flicking little plastic pieces.
No, they're wooden pieces.
Flicking wooden little wooden discs.
Yeah,
it's sort of like, I don't know. The center is similar to billiards, where there's little pegs on the middle of it.
Do you mean snooker or?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, not billiards.
The British one.
Yeah. The one with the pegs. And the tiny cues.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I guess you can do a 4-player, but I've only played it as 2. But as soon as I saw this, I was just like, I saw Vast, the miniatures, and I was like, I don't think I need those miniatures.
I need Crokinole.
So this was as soon as I saw someone complaining, it was the guy from What Did You Play Last Week?
This week.
The podcast.
Yes.
Brandon, I think it was. He was just like, man, the time or the week I finally decided to order one, and Mayday has a stupid Kickstarter for the next one, and I was just like, well, on the bright side of this mistake, you've let me know about this.
Yeah.
And so I instantly backed it.
I'm trying to remember if that was Brandon or Patrick. It was one of the two.
Yeah, it was Brandon or Patrick. I couldn't remember.
But no, like that was definitely one of those. So I have known for a while that you've wanted Crokinole.
Yeah.
I didn't know your whole story about playing at Conclave. That's actually interesting because that's like, I'm surprised, especially considering that was 2 years ago, that this is a story I hadn't heard before. Congratulations on making it so far,
thanks.
Zach.
Yeah.
But when I saw that show up on my Twitter feed, that people started to talk about like, oh, new Crokinole Kickstarter. I was like, I need to send this to Zach when I get a free minute. Like I was at work and I didn't have time to copy, paste, and send. I don't know. But then you were like, oh, new Crokinole, I'm backing it. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so what's nice too is that it's going to be here in like February.
Holy shit. That's awesome.
They're basically making them right now, and we're basically doing pre-orders. What's funny is that
Kickstarter pre-order. No.
I know. So they have 2 different sections now: the February and then the April March/April one. So the February one sold out within a day or so, maybe 2 days.
Did you get on that one?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And then the March to April one is like halfway done, and then basically after that, it's pretty much it. So it has a maximum capacity.
Yeah.
So
not on this run, but I wouldn't be surprised if in another year they do it. This is their 4th edition of it, and it was cool. Like I was browsing the Kickstarter when you were talking about it, and they have their 4 boards. Like
that
as
first
they've done
one
them,
just looks
real rough.
It's just like pressed wood.
There's a noticeable progression from May Day.
Yeah, Mayday games. The guys that make the sleeves.
Just a bunch of 2x4s nailed together.
Pretty much. Yeah. But they admit that it was not a good board, and then they slowly got better and better. Okay. And they recently did an unboxing of it, the new one, and it looks like a good board.
Looks real good.
Yeah.
It is. How big is the board? Do you know the dimensions offhand? 2-3 feet across?
I would say maybe 2.5 to.
I mean, I've seen people hang them on walls because they are so large.
Yeah. This one comes with hanging 2 hanging nails on the back so that you can hang it on your wall, and then when you want to play it, you take it down and play it.
This would not fit on shelving.
No, not at all.
Nope.
No.
News-wise, because there's not much Kickstarter.
No. So other two things we've talked about them in previous episodes, both Feudum and Lisboa are wrapping up in the next 3 days. So if you were interested in those from our previous episodes, jump over and back them. I have backed both of them.
Oh, you did end up doing Lisboa?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been
I was gonna say, I was like, knowing you, Adrian, I feel like you should probably unback Feudum to get Lisboa.
No, I'm getting them both.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of surprised. So Lisboa will, to my shame, as somebody who claims to be a heavy Euro-style gamer, to my shame, that will be my first Vita Lacerda. Unless I buy a different one of his games before it delivers.
We need to play the Gallerist.
God, yes.
What is it?
Board Game Republic has
They
a
have.
copy.
Yes, they do.
How much?
No, we can just go there and play
It's
it.
$5.
$5 to.
Oh, Board Game Republic. Sorry, yes.
Otherwise, like 125 or
Yeah, okay.
Food Chain Magnate.
Well, so Food Chain Magnet was $65 today, and oh my god, if I had I'm like $30 shy of being able to justify it.
I mean, had I known.
God damn it, Jeff! I should have. Shit.
Yeah.
Regret.
Regret.
My
I
name
can
is
see it in-
me.
Thy name is I.
Thy name is I. I don't know.
I don't need to pay that parking ticket.
Where are we?
We're in a slow news week.
Yes. Just two little things.
Two small things. Three small things.
Three. Okay.
Three
well,
small things. I don't know. I bought a bunch of games.
Doom. The Fantasy Flight has the Doom board game.
The Doom 2016, or Doom the board game.
Yes.
Because the old one was just called Doom. Board game, board game. Now this one is the board game.
Gotcha.
It's based off the most recent Doom game, which is super awesome. Kind of expensive.
Yeah. It comes out on Thursday though.
Yeah, so I guess they shipped last week.
Yes.
So it should be coming soon. $80. 5-player, 1 to 5 player co-op.
I heard good things about it from some people playing it. I think at Gen Con or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So-
Kind of expensive. Cheapest price I saw was $68.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
But like 120 to 180 minutes, kind of a long game.
Yeah.
I'm starting to shy away from the super long games.
Really?
Yeah, like the crazy long games.
See, I find myself
On
in a
the rare
position where I want to play those games. I just don't get the chance.
Okay, maybe I'm shying away from buying more long games.
That's
That's a
understandable.
fair. You've been buying a lot of games since we started this
heavy
podcast,
Yes.
games. Yeah,
which I appreciate.
yeah.
Well, because usually if it's just
You
like
keep us relevant.
yeah, well, it's either I buy it, you buy it, and then or you, Adrian, buy it, and if not, then Jeff's like, "Ugh, fine, I'll buy it."
Fine. The wonders of cheap rent and disposable income.
Yes.
I really like that new Doom game. I looked at this one. We'll see. I don't know if it's cheaper. We'll find out.
Gotcha.
Coming soon.
Yep. What was number 2?
Gen Con.
That's right.
So Gen Con next year will have its 50th anniversary.
Holy shit, it's gonna be a madhouse. Yeah, it's gonna be fucking bonkers.
Yes.
I can't wait.
I'm gonna fucking sleep there because fuck driving back and forth.
I think we're looking for a closer place this time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Start
which
shopping
we're gonna have to get on that
now. Now,
Well, I mean, I think we're already past fucked on the hotel
Hotels, yeah.
situation.
fuck those hotels specifically.
Yeah, those are going to be really
It's too much of a pain in the
And
ass.
But yeah, so it's gonna be nuts for the 50th anniversary. But before I start talking shit, what's the news?
They have extended one more year
Which is bullshit.
So
to 2021.
it's so how they did it before was like what 5 or 10 year contracts or something like that.
Something like that. I mean, it's been there since 2003,
Yeah.
2004.
yeah, 2003.
And so now it's yearly with the option to renew.
Yes.
So originally they were talking about leaving because they were there to 2020. And
Correct.
And they were going to leave because one of the reasons, or one of the most public reasons, was that I can't remember what that law was called.
Religious
Religious
Freedoms Act.
Freedom Act.
Bam.
Yep.
Good old Mike Pence.
Fucking dickbag.
That Pete.
Does anybody care to know how I feel about my?
That is our vice president elect, sir.
God damn it.
that we get along. Like cake stores didn't have to do gay weddings or something, and bathrooms or something. I don't know.
So
Anyway, they Gen Con was like, no, fuck that, fuck you.
Yep.
I went to a concert for Cards Against Humanity. There was a letter writing campaign. I wrote a letter about it. It was super cool.
Yeah. And then they eventually put in a specific provision to help safeguard
So I don't
those things.
LGBT.
For one,
Q.
it wasn't just so. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't just Gen Con. Like
Yeah.
to
I know,
bunch
yeah.
of people. Like the NCAA, like said that they would like not do Final Four stuff, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Indianapolis especially is going to lose out on a lot. But I was going to go into a huge aside about why I lived in Indianapolis or Indy, but whatever.
One of the big reasons that Gen Con is thinking about moving is because they are hitting capacity for visitors to that city.
Yeah.
That was kind of another like actual business reason for them to do it. So maybe they're just sort of they have now the Colts Stadium that they can run events out of. I think they're probably going to rent that over the next 5 years.
Well, that's what they did in this previous one is they were able to move some of the like the True Dungeon and I think a couple of cosplay things.
And I think there was a lot more space this year.
I think the issue isn't so much space for events and things, although I'm sure that's part of it. Really, it's lodging. Like the housing situation around Gen Con is fucking ridiculous.
This was the first year they didn't grow in unique attendees because I don't think they can't pack any more people into that city.
Yeah.
So
And especially how much the board game industry is growing.
yeah. Oh, it's currently super booming. We'll see if that is a bubble that bursts. I'm not sure it will. I think it'll level off.
What a downer.
What? It's a
Yeah.
valid thing to think about.
I know they had a list of like 7 cities they were considering.
Denver was on there.
Was it?
Denver was
okay.
on there. God, I wish
We don't
that
have
was
enough
Denver.
place for people to even live, let alone people to like come here for.
Hey, we got 5 years,
Well,
all right?
so some of it was and then this is to go hand in hand with that. Some of that was part of one of a big, huge ballot issue and contentious civil thing here in town is the massive renovation of the Western complex.
Yep.
And part of that renovation would make a ton of space that Gen Con could then potentially in 6 to 10 years take advantage of. And we're just as centrally located as, well, relatively speaking, we're as centrally located as
continentally
Indianapolis.
central.
Yes.
We're just being super great. We just don't want to have to drive. We just come to us, Gen Con.
I actually, for one, even if I didn't live in Denver,
Yeah.
I think Denver would be a good city for it. Denver's a city people would want to come to. And plus, Will Wheaton...
For more than one reason.
Will Wheaton really likes marijuana. And
Really?
it's legal here.
Yeah. I know he liked beer, but I didn't know he liked the marijuana.
He doesn't drink anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't
I
drink
saw.
anymore.
Yeah. He always posted on Twitter like drinking this, drinking that, and he
Yep.
always liked the fancy beers.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's it. News.
Relatively light news and Kickstarter
Yes.
week. Moving on.
But the opposite of light, some would call heavy.
Our
For our review.
So this week we are going to be reviewing the newest and quite possibly biggest Uwe Rosenberg
like
It's
game.
biggest. It is big.
By weight alone.
So this is literally Uwe Rosenberg's heaviest game. Whether the
Yeah, literally and metaphorically.
whether the gameplay is the heaviest is debatable. But we're reviewing the 2016 game A Feast for Odin from designer Uwe Rosenberg. It was published by Z-Man Games here in the States. It is currently the 44 number ranked strategy game on Board Game Geek, and it plays 1 to 4 players, and they say it takes 30 to 120 minutes. That is, as often the case, a lie. I don't think it takes 120 minutes.
Well, when we played recently, it took 4. Okay. Anyway, we can get into that later.
Yeah. All right, so Zach, you got a rule explanation for us?
Kinda. As you said, this is a Feast for Odin. So in this worker placement resource building game, you and up to 3 other players are rival Viking villages. Using the central board, players have to hunt, gather basic materials, trade, develop their production and buildings, buy and build ships, raid settlements, and explore islands. The resultant earnings are placed on the player's board in the best possible pattern to produce income and later victory points. At the end of each round, your Vikings will require a feast, and the more varied the bounty, the better. At the end of the final round, whoever has the most points wins.
Yeah. I mean, that's that. Like you said, that's a pretty good summary of the game.
The first thing you should do is go actually find a picture of what this game looks like.
Yes.
Because it is sort of hard to describe how it works besides you fit Tetris-esque pieces together onto a board to cover points and goods and things.
Yeah, if you've played his game Patchwork, which is sort of derived from this,
Yes.
it's all about you have this board that you have all these weirdly shaped pieces that you're trying to just sort of fit together in the best way possible.
So it's interesting to me, after playing Patchwork for a while now, it came out significantly earlier. Patchwork is full of just really weird shapes. Most of the shapes, aside from the special
Treasures?
treasure board,
Yeah.
most of the shapes are variations of squares and rectangles.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's not quite so Tetris-y. Where it gets Tetris-y is your board has little spots that if you surround them but not cover them, you gain additional resources every round during the bonus phase. So you're trying to use these generic squares and rectangles, but place them around in a certain way, and certain colors can and can't touch. And so you end up doing interesting placement things.
And you can also spend money to do that too. So you can just be like, oh, I want to get this bonus. I have 3 extra money. I'll just help finish rounding it and stuff like that.
Because money is the only 1x1 square.
Or is too, but yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But money can be used at any place. When you're feasting, when you're doing your home board, when you're doing your exploration board, or when you're doing your settlements and stuff like that. Money can be used anywhere.
Yeah. So, initially, like, this is definitely a game where, for one, I mean, I heard Uwe Rosenberg, and I just stopped listening, essentially.
Just shut your eyes and held out $100.
Oh, that's great for a board game reviewer to do.
But then I caught word of Magnum Opus and 64 available,
61
available or action
Actions.
spaces and things like that, and I just started salivating. And this was always going to be for me a day one buy. Like the first time it became available for me to get, I jumped right on it.
So I know when I first heard of this game, it's another one of his games. Like, okay, I'm interested. It has mechanisms, sort of the same thing from Patchwork. Ooh, that sounds cool. I love that part. And then for me, when I heard the 61 or 63 action spaces, I immediately go, what? But then how can you block people? Because like one of my favorite things of worker placement games is that I take a spot and that means that you can't take it. And like in Agricola, it's really hard because, usually there's only 1 or 2 spots that have something you want. And taking one of those is huge. Like Caverna was the same sort of thing, although it felt a little more relaxed. There was still that there. So going 61 spaces, and I saw that it didn't change between 2, 3 players, and then 4 just added 2 copy spaces. But I still that seems like the competition for spaces, and there's so many spaces. And then, so yeah, that's when I initially saw that, I was just like, that seems like too many.
Yeah.
And each row has a certain type of action that are in there, but you still have 4 to 6 of that type of action, and maybe vertically 6 or 7 different types generally.
Yeah.
But they're all so different that you can really do whatever the hell you want. But yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, one of the things that because I agreed, like I said, I heard all these actions and I saw it. That was a hold off for me. So, Agricola, I love. It's one of my favorite Uwe games. But Agricola makes me so mad because it is so limited. And you get into such a narrow, I need to do the next 4 actions in this exact order. And then the second somebody you're like, all right, starting now, it's Zach's turn. When he's done, I need to do the next 4 actions. And then you take the first of those 4 and it just fucks that whole plan. I get so.
But it's the fun of all these worker placement games to where what's option B, C, D.
So that's what makes Agricola great is that tenseness of
least worst.
Agricola is you're gonna have a hard time doing what you need to do just to stay afloat. To feed your people and not start getting negative points is hard in Agricola. And I agree with you, Zach. That was one of the things with 61 spaces. I was initially, when I first heard that, because that was one of the first things I heard was 61 action spaces. I was nervous that it'd be too much. But then I very quickly, when I started looking into the game more, realized that it was in those 4 main columns that takes 1, 2, 3, or 4 action pawns. So if you are down to 1 action pawn, then 3/4 of the board at least is not available to you.
Oh no, yeah.
So it's actually much more limited than the 61 action spaces makes it seem.
Well, that's true.
There was a couple times in that last game where I was like, I need that one action.
Yeah.
But I was able to do other things before that to make it so like, okay, I can do this other one just as efficiently.
Yeah. Well, and then so obvious, like you said, all the spaces are all different, and they do a bunch of different things. So, like at the beginning of the game, you're not going to do immigration like this is your first move because you don't have any boats. You don't have any money to buy any boats. And so, like you said, basically at any given turn, you can only do certain things. And there's like some spots where you can turn stuff into other stuff through trading or crafting.
Yeah.
And you're like, if you look around, you're like, oh, nobody else has that stuff, so I don't have to worry about that one right now.
Upgrade.
Yeah.
Double D.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's kind of like, I don't know, that my initial gut reaction.
Yes.
I mean, it's an Uwe game, which I am actively seeking games of his that are older and out of print, and I have a decent selection of. He's probably one of my most representative like designers in my collection. I really like Uwe games, so when I heard Uwe Magnum Opus, big huge game, I got excited.
And my last thing, like Jeff said, look a picture of it. When I first saw a picture of like
A good place to see a picture of many different board types would be on our Twitter or Facebook.
Yes.
Because we have 4 different pictures of 4 different boards
Yep.
that you can see how different each player can play this game.
But
Yes.
then, like, the setup of the game before, it just looks so, like, you look at all that and you're like,
Daunting.
That looks too much. Like,
Yep.
no matter, like, even if everything works together, like, the first time I saw a picture, I was like, that seems like 30% too much of a game. It's like they took 30% of another game and just put it on there. And they're like, yeah, that's all Feast for Odin. But
And
it's
then
like,
just take a Monopoly board,
Yep.
and dump it upside down, and
so that was my pre-gaming impressions.
So I'm going to break from tradition a little bit with this game from our normal. Normally right now is when I go into components and stuff, but real quick, I want to talk about, so we all had these initial expectations. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts with your first game? And what were your conditions for your first game? Because they were different for
All right.
our first game was
1/3
it
of
was
us.
2-player.
Yeah, me and Jeff played our first game together. It was 2-player, like you said. We got
3 hours.
3 hours. It's because it was a game night too.
Yep.
And also we were learning the game together.
Correct.
We got some rules wrong, obviously.
Not too bad though.
Not too bad, but still enough to be like we were playing completely wrong. But like
What did we get wrong?
the red foods can't touch each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
In the sideboards or
no,
in the feast?
in the feast. We never used the sideboards.
No,
'Cause we
no,
put-
we had fuck everything else about this
We
game.
played the short game, so in the short game, it's hard to get those extra boards and fill up your own board.
Yes.
So I was initially like, okay, I can see, the goodness in this game. 2-player definitely felt like there was only one time when when the entire time we were playing where I was like, there's one spot I need. And I told Jeff, like he was the first person to place a card, and I'm like, Jeff, don't take my one spot that I want. And he
I'm
looked at
sorry.
61 spots, and he's just like, no fucking clue what it is.
No idea. I made up for it later.
Yeah,
Because I took that exact same one again
yeah, yeah.
in a later game, and he was like, fuck you.
So, Jeff, you and I both, we did pretty much day one that it was available for us. We
Yes.
bought this.
Yep.
So, after your first play, that 2-player game, what did you think it was immediately like what you expected, better or worse?
It is a super good game that you need a lot of plays of to enjoy, because there are so many options that you feel you could do any of them and be like, well, let's see what happens at the end score for what I did. And then as you play more, you can kind of refine that into a winning strategy.
So one of our friends, the first time he played, he said it was really hard to see the forest for the trees. Is that how you
Yeah,
say it?
yes.
And in this, like in the first play, you're just you have sort of a hard time understanding how a lot of things like sort of work together. And I felt that when we were playing, I was like, I can see there's good here. I know I'm not playing well.
And I think he had also described it as they designed a bunch of trees and then made a forest out of it.
Yeah, because so that was what. So it was our friend Wes, and it was who we played our most recent game with.
Yeah.
And you guys had played with him earlier this week. This Sunday was the first time I had played with him. It was his second playthrough, and he said it kind of came together a little bit more
Yeah.
in that one. But initially, he felt that it felt like Uwe or, whoever, he had a bunch of different things that from all his different games that he thought worked well. And he was like, well, how can I put these all together into one thing? And for Wes, it initially felt like they seemed disjointed and didn't work so well together. So Zach, I'm curious with you. Mm-hmm. You said one of your initial concerns was that it felt like it might be way too open with 61 things. Do you, after your first play, did that kind of still...
Because we played with 2-player, yes. I felt like when we were playing, like I didn't feel any competition. Jeff was sort of doing his thing, and I was just sort of doing mine.
You have so many branching paths that you can sort of do whatever you need to do in whatever order.
Yeah, basically, like whatever Jeff took in the beginning is like, okay, I'm going to focus on these other things then, because we don't you don't really have sort of a path you want to go in the beginning, and so Jeff is going. We both start here in the start, and Jeff immediately started going left, and I'm like, well, why would I go left if I'm going to have to compete with Jeff? I'll just go right, and then basically, like I said, didn't feel any competition from it.
Okay.
They felt like we were just both doing our own things, and at the end we're like, oh, okay, well, let's see what we got.
Who got least worst?
Yes.
So my first play was a solo game. My first 3 plays were solo games. And one of the things I think is, and I still think is interesting, but I thought was really interesting when I was learning this solo game, is instead of playing with just one set of action pawns, meeples, Veeples, Viking meeples.
Yep, that's what it is now.
Veeples. You have one, instead of playing with one set of Veeples, I'm going to say Veeples.
It's like a verp.
You take 2 sets. And so in rounds, basically in all the odd number ones, you'd play with, say, blue. And all the even ones, you'd play with black. And you leave the previous one on the table. So in the solo game is the only version of the game where you are guaranteed to not be able to take the same action 2 turns in a row. In 2, 3, and 4, as long as nobody else gets to it before you, you could keep taking the same action every round for 7 rounds, which added a very interesting kind of dynamic learning it my first few games, trying to balance that, like, well, is this the best time to take this action, or do I want to take it next turn? Would it be better to wait a turn?
I've heard that some people who didn't really like this game, like I know of at least one reviewer, no pun intended or no pun included, he didn't really like the 2 to 4 player, but he liked the solo a lot more because it added that aspect where you can't just do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So initially, with everything I'd heard about this game, that it was I didn't dive too much into it. We've talked a little bit before about how we research games. This one I didn't get into too much beyond just the basics, just a ton of action things, Uwe, magnum opus, etc., etc. Once I got to the table as a solo game, it took me like 3-4 hours. I was up. It was over Thanksgiving weekend. I was out at my grandparents' house. I waited for everybody to go to bed. I was exhausted. Like, I was trying hard not to doze off reading the rule book while I was setting up. Like, it was like midnight, and I played till like 3 a.m., like 4 a.m., something like that. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
But I loved it after a solo play. Like, and we'll get into things as the review goes. In the solo game, with that dynamic of placing one set of pawns and leaving them and then having to place around the other ones, the game felt at a 1-player level really tense. Like, it was, especially since I didn't know anybody, I knew nobody was waiting on me. I was APing hard. So it's like, okay, well, if I'm
really glad I didn't play with you then.
And then do that, and then do this. Well, it's only something I would do in a solo game because A, I know nobody's waiting on me. And
only in the
B,
solo games, never in any other.
He never APs.
Not like I did on this one. I'm saying this one was excessive.
Oh, okay.
Like, because I was planning out like 5 turns in advance rather than just one whole turn. But I played it 3 times over Thanksgiving weekend, solo games, and for me, the solo games alone lived up to what I was expecting of this game. I was already really excited about it. So then before we move on into later plays, let's go back to our regular format components for this game.
There's a lot of pieces to this game.
So many pieces.
It comes with trays. Nice.
Which is good. That'd been
with nice covers that
Yeah.
keep the things from falling out of said trays.
Because it actually
Matters.
It actually matters in the gameplay because there are cards that you actually do diagonally versus so you're like you need to keep things in their certain spots.
So there's like 2 trays that are like 4 by 6,
4 by 5,
4
I
by
think.
5.
Yeah.
So the whole game is like 4 by 10. Some spaces aren't used because they're sort of storage for cows and sheep and stuff.
Yeah.
But man, punching out that game. Oh my God.
It was fantastic. I loved it. I'm sorry I didn't invite you over, Zach. He asked. I did. I got done. I was editing that night, and I was like, no, I probably won't get to it. And then I finished editing pretty quick, and I was like, I'm gonna break this out. And I sent a picture to Zach, and he just like sent me back like a sad face or something.
Yeah.
There are many, many unique cardboard punch-out boards. There's a circle on this board, so we're just going to have another random circle on the other board. These are all completely unique boards of pure insanity.
Yeah. So, Jeff, I haven't seen your copy and how you organize it. Did you throw away all the punch board, or did you do like you do sometimes where you stick some under to balance it out?
No. There's not enough room to put balance shit underneath this game.
Yeah, there is.
No.
He does, but because he also stores it weird. Like he puts,
You're a madman. There's no extra room in that box.
Yeah, there is. I've got like 6 of the empty punch boards stacked underneath one of the basic cardboard layouts.
Are you a hoarder?
No, I think he's
Also,
just a
yes.
liar. That's
Throw it
what you're
away.
like. Look how many. Look
I'm
how
going to
much.
show you pictures.
There's
No, I know.
There's
Yeah.
like 2 inches of
It's funny to me
cardboard
how heavy the
pieces.
empty... If I take all of the game components that we
Yeah.
play with just the extra like punch board that I left in the bottom, the empty box is still surprisingly
That's what I was
heavy.
like. You're just a liar because you're like, look how heavy this game is because it's got fucking weights in there weighing it down.
You have to learn to let go, Adrian. And you need to let go of those punch boards.
I threw over half of them away.
Because there was 10. I have also thrown them away, but I have not thrown away my desk garbage can yet, and it is mostly taking up that garbage can.
So I think the components, they're widely varied, but they are fantastic. Like they're
they're
really
basic cardboard
it's
shits, but the art on all of them, the different colors.
The sheer quantity of them is
They're
something
all-
to behold too. Where
Yeah.
it just,
two-sided, 2 colors. There is no cuts.
it's easy enough to read.
Quality.
Like not only is it two-sided for color, but it's also for picture too.
Yes.
And like it's like you can look at one, you're like, oh, I know exactly what that is. It's
And
quality punch board. Like it's a
Yeah.
good
The only-
thickness, good solid.
The only thing you need to read off of the pieces is the blues, which have a pillage number.
yes.
Which we rarely use.
Very
But
Well, that's because usually we just go for the fucking
treasure board.
yeah, the treasure board. But then we also there's also the money that I'm sure that was annoying to punch out.
There's so much money.
Yeah, especially the singles.
The singles. I don't know. I just zoned out. And
Yep.
did it. I was just
Yeah, I
watching
just-
Netflix and just punching into my lap.
eyes rolled.
reminds when I sleeved Alien and Predator.
Yeah.
650 cards sleeved, sword and sleeve, just zone watching something.
Yep.
Yep. Just your eyes roll into the back of
yes.
your head, and then you're done.
Yep.
There's a whole shit ton of different boards. Like I like that the wood has branches ish.
Yep.
The
looks like
stone is stony.
Stone shaped.
It's
The ore is a slight blue for whatever reason.
and
It's
it's just a square.
a cube, but I think that's because of the way it places on your player board.
They probably
so they just
had to
made
do
that very simple so that it's a square that goes on.
I know.
your player
I'm fine with
board.
that. I just don't know why it was not just black.
Oh,
It's like it's a
probably some quirk of printing.
yeah.
I'm sure there is something about it in the almanac that this game also comes with.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. But overall, like I think the components are really good. I think the board is pretty well laid out. There's a fair amount of iconography you got to get your head wrapped around. But once you do, a lot of it makes sense. Like
No,
you
it's the occupation. That's the only one where you just like
even that one at this point, like I don't reference the rule book. I mean, we'll get to the rule book stuff here in a second, but I don't reference it nearly as much with occupations. Like I feel like after I've played now 7 times, I'm getting the iconography down. Like I am understanding what it means and how it works. So
No, I get that for the most part. There's still one or two that I was just like,
Yeah.
I don't know what this means at all.
that's fair.
But yeah, for me, I would say like each individual piece, maybe not the greatest, obviously, but just the sheer amount of it is quantity over.
It is an epic scale game in components alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no food chain magnate.
No.
I don't know. I haven't seen Food Chain Magnate actually on a table. Moving on from that, I guess rules and rule book.
Anytime you teach this to someone, it instantly adds 30 minutes at the start of the game.
Yep. When we taught Wes that first game, I was just on my phone for 30 minutes while Zach
Yep.
was like, all right, action 1, action 2, action 40,
yeah,
action 45,
and so,
action
yeah.
61.
Yeah. 90% of the game is really just teaching that board. Because, like, there's over around is 12 different things, but 10 of them are easy
Yeah.
to figure out.
Yep.
Even
These
the
two
main,
actions are the same. This one just takes more dudes.
Yes.
exactly, and most of them are that way. You can be like, all right, so this top row here, there's the 4 columns. This
Yep.
top row is building. This lets you build ships or build buildings. This one is hunting/fishing, where you can lay traps, or you can go hunting with your bow, or you can go and
And so
they
on and so
break
on,
down
yeah.
pretty well.
One thing we haven't mentioned specifically is depending on how far right on the board you go, the more action pieces / Vikings you have to use to do it. So the far left is super easy, super basic, but it only takes one guy.
Yep.
And then 2, 3, 4. You can have up to 4 Vikings in one action.
Yeah.
Yep. See, explaining it does take a fair amount of time. Like I said, probably about 30 minutes, I'd say. Especially as it explains easy enough. Like there's nothing too complicated or tricky. It's just there's a lot here.
There's just, like I said, even though, even they're split into categories, it's still like 11 or 12 categories, and you have to be like, okay, this means this.
Yep.
All right, this one means that, and then any questions and stuff like that. But then once you do that, it's relatively easy. And obviously, when I was playing, I'm just, especially playing with new people, it's just like, oh, okay, well, if you do this, you can actually get this to do something else. And then, but like you said, the board itself has a lot of sort of like those little not glossaries, like just those little guides of how to put food and how things can be touching.
Yeah.
Yep.
It shows real clearly by the various board. Like there's a little side chart that shows like this board can hold ores, it can hold money, it can hold blue that can be adjacent, it can hold green that can't be, or like this one can hold blue that can be adjacent and green that can be adjacent, but brown and red can't be.
Yeah.
And
Is it brown?
orange?
Orange is a better word for that color.
Sure. I think that this is a game that's easy enough to explain, albeit with time. But I don't see new players, especially if they're playing with somebody who's got a couple games under their belt.
They're not going to win.
You're going to have a real
Yeah,
hard time
that's-
finding if we're going back to the forest and trees analogy, like this is a dense forest. And to find the right path through it, you're going to need a couple shots. You're going to need to try a few times. Otherwise, you're going to end up just walking circles around the same couple trees.
Yes. Yeah. And so, like one of the things, the occupation cards that we get, especially whenever you're a new player, whenever we give someone an occupation card, we're usually just like, okay, here's the appendix. Go, because the appendix has every single card for all
There's 3 rule books that come with this game.
Yeah.
There's a rule book that's rules and has all the major mechanics.
Yep. And I like that
mechanisms.
that he has like game designer notes of like, in this instance, it means this and this.
And
Yes.
a lot of times I like in his rule books, it's like, this is why I did
Yes.
this, which I always enjoy. There's another that is just like, here's like 99B. This is what this exact card is. You can look up everything and be like, hand me the book. I have no idea what this card means. And there's a specific explanation
Yes.
that's super easy.
Yeah.
And then there's an almanac that like, if you want to learn about the Viking Age, here's literally everything in this game and why it is what it is.
You want to know
during
why
that
they
era.
included wool in this game? It's right in there for you.
If you want to
thing.
know why the penalties are called thing penalties,
Yeah.
and there's the thing,
It was the
not space, Thingstead. Like thing is a Viking thing.
yeah.
If you want to learn about
Right,
Iceland,
English.
when it was settled, by how many Vikings,
I would
it was
recommend just
settled.
going to Iceland like I did this summer.
Oh yeah. Well,
Oh.
yeah.
Sorry, just had to zip
Famous
in there.
Vikings are in here.
Yeah.
Like Moose is the first player token, so they have an explanation of like, yeah, Moose were totally in Scandinavia,
Yeah.
and here's what importance they had. If you don't know who Odin is,
Yeah, you can tell that Uwe loves he put a lot of effort in this game, and it show and research into including all of these things.
Gernot Kopke, but the O has an umlaut, so K with an Umlaut.
We got it.
Yeah.
This podcast has to end at some point.
No, it's never going to end because that O is real messed up. He had like a team of a researcher help him make this game and be not historically accurate, but accurate into the point of like, that's why all of these things are in here. Not all.
He has a reason for each one of the things that he chose.
And he specifically says, not all Vikings are the same, but I had to make a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think overall I like the almanac is nice. I really want to sit down sometime and just read through it because Viking stuff interests me. But aside from that, I do like the way they split up the rule book, which does a great job. Like you read through it and it teaches you how to play. Like, if you read through it, it'll teach you how to play. Like I hate rule books where like it gives you the rules but doesn't teach you how to play. Rule books are they're a whole other animal.
They're really hard to get right.
Discussion about getting a rule book right. I do think this one got the rule book right. Like, I went through it and it walks you through setup, and then it's like, all right, so starting at the top of this action board, like where you got your little thing that moves you through, like you're in this round, you're doing your draw a new Viking. Okay, well that's simple. You just bring a Viking down. And then you do harvest, and then you do the exploration boards, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then you do this, and you do that, and you go down this whole list, and it walks you through, and then it's like, all right, well, while you're in this phase, this is all the things you can do in this phase. This is all the things you can do in that phase. And by the time you've went through the rule book, playing along with it, you know how to play the game. You don't necessarily know all the strategies or everything that you need to know to win.
I still don't know the strategies or how to win.
I don't know if any of us do. I think we're just taking turns getting lucky.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. Totally.
Shut up, Zach. I had an interesting phenomenon over my first 3 single-player games where each game consecutively I scored less and less points. Like I just got worse at the game.
As you cheated your way through them.
Well, that was the biggest problem. The second game, I accidentally cheated my face off. And then in the third game, I decided to branch out onto the exploration boards and didn't realize that Faroe Island is apparently bullshit. If you want to lose this game, settle Faroe Island.
Apparently, that's the least winning island or something like that.
I mean, it's the worst island, but as soon as people start saying that, there are people going, oh, well, I'm going to totally win a game while taking it. It's like challenge accepted.
Challenge, yeah.
So,
yeah. On top of this game, there's like 8 islands, 4 2-sided boards that you can just be like, I need more challenge to this game.
Yeah, so there's a lot. So let's move on into gameplay. For playing this game, because this all kind of goes into that, I think the base game of placing your workers on the board, like once you realize that the columns are for 1, 2, and 3 1, 2, 3, 4 Vikings and all those kinds of things and what the different rows of those columns roughly translate to, the gameplay itself is really pretty smooth. I do think that the way they handled the resources and the resource conversions gets a little bit tedious. And it can be like you bump something, your pile of things get shifted and you're like, wait, were those ones on the orange side or were they on the red side? Were they on the blue side or were they on the green side? Like there's a lot of managing different materials and making sure that you place the tile the right way. I mean, this is one of those things like it's a similar problem with Le Havre. Like they're all double-sided. The nice thing for Le Havre is there's a very clear, like, this flips over and becomes that. Whereas this one, it can go from orange to red to blue to green up one column. Or like you said, Zach, like there's a couple cards that'll let you go diagonal. So it can go from like this one and then over and up and then over and up and then over and up. And keeping track of all that can be a little bit, dare I say, fiddly.
Yeah, that's the game.
Dare.
I double dog dare you.
I still really like it. I love the way this game plays. I do think I probably prefer it. If of all the games on my shelf that I've played single player, this has been my favorite single player game. It takes up a ton of space to play single player, and it's a ridiculously long setup and a long play, so it's not something I'm going to play single player a lot, but I do like it.
So one of the things I wanted to do before we reviewed this was I knew I was going to get a chance to play single player, but I wanted to play 2, I wanted to play 3, and I wanted to play 4. Mainly because the board doesn't grow except for the 4 player where it just adds 2 more spots. And after playing 2 players, like this feels really loose. Like playing 3 players I was like, okay, I'm starting to see a little bit more blocking happen. And then with 4 players, you definitely feel a lot more of that blocking, but there's still chances with getting those extra spaces. But I really do like how the copy spaces, it's on a tile, and it's like you either can copy ones from the 1 column or the 2, not both, and then the 3 or the 4, not both.
Yeah.
It's sort of random on which way it goes. So
And only one person can take
Exactly.
that extra copy action.
yes, but it's nice because then it still means with 4 players, if say it's the 2 and 3, that means columns 1 and 4. If once anyone takes one of those,
It's gone.
It's gone. I don't really like the game. I feel that the game is way too open with 2 players, which is weird because Board Game Geek 2 players was the
It was by far and away the most recommended
Over 50%,
Yeah.
56% were like 2-player. But on Board Game Geek, 2-player games are pretty heavily favored
Yeah.
overall
yeah.
as
So-
well.
so I'm-
Again, there's a lot of couples and
Yeah.
stuff that play games like that.
Which, yeah, I mean, it sucks Megan's out of town. I would have liked to play a 2-player game of this with her to compare it because we've played almost all the other Uwe games 2 players. I want to play more. I've only played one 2-player game with you, Zach, and despite the single-player game Faroe Island screwing me, I decided to take Faroe Island in our 2-player game, and it screwed me there too. So I want to take a 2-player game where I don't take Faroe Island and it doesn't screw me.
Right.
But my initial reaction is definitely the same way. I would say 2 is my least favorite. I loved it at 1. Mm-hmm. I liked it at 3, and I've really enjoyed it at 4. But 2 would be my least favorite. So,
Well, it
so
also
it's
didn't
interesting.
help that by the end, near the end of the 3rd round, we were just like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win.
We almost could have just quit.
Yeah. And I did end up winning like 100 to like
40s.
40s. So,
You nearly tripled my score.
yeah.
And 1 player is just barely under 4, like 16% versus 15.9%, with 51.8 and 31.3 being 2 and 3 player.
Yeah.
People love this game at 2-player.
Yeah, I don't see it.
And there's a ton of people voting on it
Yeah.
too.
Although, I mean, this is one of those things. Like, I feel, like I've heard as a semi-derogatory term, Agricola described as misery farm.
Yeah.
Like, if people hate how hard it is to feed your people. And then I feel like
Yeah.
Verna came along and it was even easier. And then, like, Le Havre, it's like you still have to feed your people, but you can take a loan that you can then repay. Like, Agricola, like, if you can't feed your people, you're like, that's a permanent penalty.
And like you are now
and-
fight fourth.
Yeah,
Like,
And this game, I've played 6 games, and I've never seen somebody not feast.
So basically, you get your income before you feast, and you can use money for food. So if you are ever short on food, you can be like, oh, I'll just use money. So no one has ever starved.
and you really messed up if you're in that situation.
Yes.
Yeah. So I could see going hand in hand with that, people thinking of Agricola as misery farm and wanting,
Well,
especially
that's the 1600s.
across the
Yeah.
across the general public, wanting something not quite so punishing. This game is at its least punishing at 2 players. So if you're wanting something with some denial and some, real blocking to fuel your enjoyment of this game, don't play it at 2 players.
Yeah.
Play it at 3, play it at 4.
It certainly grows more competitive. I mean, duh. But when you add more players, but it becomes doubly so every time you add one or more of those players.
Yes.
At 2-player, it's super open. You can just kind of play your own game to try and get the most points. At 3 players, you're like, you might have those situations where you're like, oh man, I need that spot. And at 4-player, I felt it the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
So after the more I played this game, the more I felt like I did definitely start to see the gears sort of working, and how I couldn't really think of something to take out of the game and still have it work just as well.
Yeah.
And so my main problem with the game is the occupation cards, mainly because of how random they are. Because you get there's a decently sized stack of them, and you start with one starter one, and
I
then
like the starter ones.
Yeah, the starter ones are fine, but then you grab the other ones, and some of them are pretty good. They're great starting one. You get in the first or second round, but if you get that in
Later.
the 5th or 6th round, you're like, well, this is a useless card now.
And vice versa.
Exactly. Yes. And I've seen people where they're just like, oh, I got 2 great cards that work really well together, and other people, they don't have any cards, and it's just like,
And you're just trying to draw as many cards as possible, and it's like, well, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks.
Yeah, and you're actively taking away, like, you're spending time drawing cards when you should be doing something else, probably. And so my only problem is that I don't know how, like, I wouldn't know how to fix it, really.
Well, so I think the big thing is that in this one, so in Agricola, occupations and minor improvements are huge, and playing the right ones at the right times is very important to having a successful strategy. Then Caverna didn't have them, and people complained.
But it's at Agricola because you had them at the beginning, so you could plan for them.
Yes. And so I think that this one actually, I think, strikes a happy medium, because some people, if you don't draft an Agricola, you get screwed, or you don't get a good starting hand of them. Or like, because you start with so many, people like try and focus on getting 6 or 7 occupations down, and really you need to pick like 1 or 2 that synergize well, and that you can sneak in there with extra actions while you're trying to do everything else. I think that this game, and one of the things I do actually like about the occupations, is they're not a focus. Like they're
bonus.
When you play on the 3 and you play on the 4 Viking spots, on the 3 you get to draw 1, and on the 4 you get to play 1. And so for drawing 1, you draw 1, and if it happens to work great for you, awesome. And if you want to go out of your way, they have a spot to like, I get to play an occupation. Otherwise, at some point you're going to take a 4 Viking action, and then you get to play 1. And even if it's not a particularly useful one for you, they're typically worth points. And the ones that aren't worth points are good cards. So I feel like they're not overemphasized because they aren't super. There's not great ways to get them or great ways to play them, so they don't overemphasize their value. Some are good, some are bad, but they're really hit or miss.
I've seen a couple that worked really well together.
There's absolutely several.
And so it's like, because it's random on which ones you get, it sucks for the other people when that person, like one person gets it and nobody else.
So there's the A, B, and C decks.
Yes.
And I like the A deck because it's more general. But as we have played with the B and C, they come super specific and sort of thin out how useful the cards actually are, because I've got 4 of these ships and then it's really good, but it's turn 6 and that's not the ships I went.
I think my main problem is that like I don't like how they're implemented, but I also can't think of a better way to do it. It's just, I wish there was something else.
I've felt the same way about Agricola, where I could be like, meh, I like the game without occupations and.
That's why you like Caverna more.
That's why I like Caverna.
I like Agricola more because I like the occupations, the improvements, and I think especially once you do the drafting for them in Agricola,
which
that's a game changer.
Definitely did not do the 7 or 8 times I played Agricola. It's like, hey, here's your 7 cards. Go fuck yourself.
I mean, it's like Terraforming Mars. Like, you gotta draft.
Yep.
You want to play it right, you gotta draft it.
Maybe that's why I like Caverna more. Maybe you should play it more than once.
I would like to play.
I want to play it again.
Once.
Yeah.
I
bought some super glue so I can take my broken token thing and actually glue it together.
Maybe you should play Agricola with drafting.
Yeah. Still,
I'm okay if I don't play Agricola again.
Let's use the K deck.
But so that's gameplay. I mean, I don't know. I feel like at this point we can probably move on to final thoughts on this game.
Yeah.
So, Zach, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah.
You're gonna be the most negative.
Yeah.
We'll start with you.
It's like I said, it's a fine game, but I feel like after my 4th play, like the only thing I could really glean from the game is the occupation cards, and so I think that's why I'm so sort of stuck on them, because I'm like I get the game now.
You do seem stuck on them,
but I'm just like, so the fact that you just get those cards and they're either great or they're not, and I liked it better in my 3rd play than I did on my 4th. I think that's just because I'm like I said, a lot of times with these games, like the mechanisms will keep me for 2 to 3 games, and then it has to be the theme and how it is implemented in the game that'll keep me coming back to the game, like Terraforming Mars.
Right.
But this one, not as much. It's before my 3rd or on my 3rd game when I finished, I was like, okay, this is definitely over Caverna. But now I'm like, I should play Caverna again, because this one, Caverna might go up over this one again. I don't know. My list of, Uwe Rosenberg games, with obviously Patchwork being the first one, the best one, but
not enough fences and stables, clearly.
It's definitely a good game, but I don't know. it doesn't. It's just still feels too open and it's too much.
Okay.
So,
So I'll go next because I think I'm going to be the most positive.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go from negative to most positive, and then we'll have Jeff just
Zach
smooth it
just
out in
really
the middle.
shit in that literal box.
Yeah.
I just want to say that out of the three of us, I did not buy it.
Yeah.
And after playing it, I'm like, I'm fine with you guys having, like, I'll still play it, but I have no need to buy it now. So
for me, I have increasingly enjoyed. I would say probably my favorite two games were my first and my most recent. My first, just diving in solo like that night, like I was up way too late. It was exhausting. I was half asleep, but it immediately struck me that like the way it played out, especially as a solo game, like I mentioned earlier, talking through my plays, I really like this as a solo game. There is a BGG group that does like a solo challenge that I want to look into, where like each week they give a challenge, like play the game without doing shipping at all or without doing this at all, and like see, and everybody posts what their high scores are and stuff. That really intrigues me. So I'm going to probably try and start doing some of that. The 4-player game that we played last night was one where so much of what I had picked up on over my 3 solos, our 2-player game, and our previous 4-player game all just kind of clicked. It was like, all right, this is a game where there are multiple paths to victory, but you can't just go down one of them. Like, you need to pick one to focus on that nobody else is working on. So you got to identify what your opponents are going for. Pick one that they're not and make that your main focus. But you need to also work on 2 or 3 of the other paths. And this is one of the things Wesley was really talking about when we were dissecting the game after last night's playthrough. For me, I went real heavy on immigration, taking my ships and flipping them over, which filled up my feast space, so I didn't need to feast as much, and got me a lot of points. I also did a pretty good job of filling out my sideboard and had enough other things going on. I got a lot of occupations down. Half of them didn't do anything for me, but they were points. And I didn't end up with a lot of negatives. I was able to fill in my board with things. And it really feels to me, and I'm already wanting to play it again, because I feel like I'm just going to be able to continually tighten that strategy and really get better at identifying, like, these things are going to help me fill in my board right to start getting the right bonuses that are going to build off each other over and over again.
So I just want to touch on that. I think that's one thing for me why I don't really care about like continuously like mastering a game or anything like that. So I can definitely understand that drive of, next time I'm going to do, I learning through mistakes.
That's how I learn.
Yeah. And so, each round or each game going like, okay, I did this wrong. I'm going to do this better. I want to try like you said, tightening and tightening. For me, it's definitely not, it's like I play it a couple times and I'm like, all right, I get the gist of it. Like I got a B on it. I'm fine with the B. I don't need to do it. So I think that's one reason why I also tend to not play a lot of Euros and stuff, is because that seems to be the main thrall of a lot of those games. So,
okay.
Would you call Terraforming Mars a Euro or
Yes.
a Ameritrash?
I would say it's Euro.
But
Euro?
it's also the fact that like those cards drive what sort of strategy you're doing. That's what, like, I don't have to like, that's why I can keep coming back to that game.
Yeah.
Because this one is just like, I'm just like, I want to try something else here, versus the cards are like, I have all these cards. Let's see what I can do with these.
We need to start a Terraforming Mars counter.
Yeah.
For how many times we talk about Terraforming
Yes.
Mars when we're not reviewing Terraforming Mars.
We can only review it once. So
Unless you guys want us to review it again, please, we'll review it again.
we know one person does. So
All right, so Jeff, what do you think of Feast for Odin?
I really like it because I do have that bit of a hook in certain games, specifically video games, where I can be like, I need to play this game more to become better at it. And the multiple times I've played it, Feast for Odin, I have grown in knowledge of the game to the point of where like I need to play this again so I can be like, I did that little bit better. I did that little bit better. I got that island and I did well on that island as well as everything else. I started there's 3 other like longhouse storage and something else boards that you can get and get points on top of points. it's a game where you just need to add more strategy and to be like, all right, I'm skillful enough to know I can do this on top of this. And every game I've played so far has been adding more and more on top of that. And that's what I really like about this game, to where you can pull off all of these different strategies and just be like, yes, I got better. And this is a game you could play a dozen times competitively with 4 players and grow each time.
Absolutely.
An advanced player at this game is something I cannot even imagine at this point. It's so much so to where you see some of those crazy MOBAs like Dota and those like super ultra high tier players, and I've played 500 hours of Dota 2 and be like, I can't imagine being as good as they are. And this is kind of that game where you can play it and you just kind of take that extra step every time you play it, to where I want to see what a high level play of Feast for Odin is, because I think it's a game where it can go insane to be like, holy shit, this guy.
I've heard people that will regularly score in the 120 to 130s.
And I had 55 and I thought I did a good job.
That was one of the best things, like talking about our game on Sunday. we were getting we're all kind of talking around the table and Jeff's kind of being quiet over there. I'm like, Jeff, what do you think of this game? And he goes, well, I thought I was doing really good, and then I got 58 to your 104.
Well, it was 104, 89, 83, and then
82.
50 something.
Yeah.
58.
And I was like, I thought I was crushing it.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was like, I was really surprised you got that too.
It's like when Adrian read off my score and Zach was like, is that right? And he looked over at my boards and was like, no, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was doing super well. And it felt like I was doing super well. And then you saw everyone that was doing way better than you.
Yeah.
Well, and that's how
But there's so much you can do in this game that I just want to play it. Like, can I just teleport to when I played 15 games of this and I'm amazing at it?
Yeah.
No, and that's how I felt with my 3 solo games. Like, although I did significantly worse on each one, I felt on each one of those like I was doing better. I was like, oh man, I think I did really... Wait, I scored less?
Yeah.
Well, the one game was because I completely forgot about the rule about greens not touching each other. So I had like a minus 40 penalty for breaking the rules on the main board.
At least there's a rule about breaking the rules, because it
was a pretty big rule to break.
Yeah.
So, but the other ones, like, I don't know, I felt like I've got like 6 sideboards filled out, like I'm doing real good. And
I just want to become a Feast for Odin grandmaster.
Yeah.
Well, it's so like when on this most recent one, like I had the highest positive score of 114 to your 111, 112.
You were 2 points ahead of me in my score, but you got more negative.
Yeah, I got more negative because I was trying, because I wanted to see how much sideboard stuff I could fill while also trying to fill my main board. And I got Iceland's or whatever it was, and then 3 of the other ones, each a different type, and then most of my my main board.
I thought it was interesting on this game. The 2 players who did the best, you and I, and the 2 players who did the worst, Wes and Jeff, were opposites on who had negatives. Like, you and I both had negatives.
Tons.
Both Wes and Jeff filled their boards entirely and had no negative points. Like, so it is almost kind of, and this is one of the things I do like about this game, it's like a risk reward. It's like, well, do I go for those extra points that could potentially be a lot of points, but could potentially be a lot of negative? And it's that little hint of a gamble, like, how good can I fill that in? Is it going to be worth it for me to go for it?
Well, so like those sideboards, you can fill those with food, and both Wesley and Jeff had a lot of just extra food. Oh, you did too?
I had a ton of orange.
I had 3 left.
Oh, I had like 6 or 7, and then a couple reds.
Using your pieces as efficiently as possible.
Yes,
where I ended
huge.
with just a ton of extra stuff that I could have bought one of those other pieces and dumped them on there and gotten a ton of extra points.
Yep.
And that, like you said, that's just more, now you know that.
Now I know, it's like, get a longhouse.
Yeah.
You have orange and red, you can totally use those on there.
Yep. And it can get you more food too, so you don't have to worry as much during the
and
feast.
then it's like, boom, there's another 17 points.
Yeah.
I am really curious to see over multiple plays how this game progresses. I am dying to see how Megan, like, how she manages to crush me at this game.
Yeah, I was about to say, like,
She's like 150 points.
It's going to be. I cannot wait for it. The girl is so good at these type of games. Like, I wish I could like see.
Do you want to keep
then
playing
how
games so
she
that way
sees.
you're like, I'll be able to beat her in one game?
My single most satisfying Agricola play in my entire life was tying Megan. I felt so good. I felt so, and we tied.
Didn't you beat her once?
No.
In Catan because you told everybody else to basically you all
Destroy
dogpiled on her.
No. So I was playing with her family, who was well aware of how good she was.
Okay.
And they were equally good. And it was only because I dogpiled on Megan and was viciously mean. She didn't talk to me for almost 24 hours. That was a very early test to our relationship.
Yeah,
But it was like, by God, I will win this game of Catan.
gotcha.
So, no, she's great at games. I wish she wasn't in Seattle so that we could play more games together right now. But
Soon.
whatever.
Can you pack Feast for Odin?
I'm seriously considering
Okay.
it. I'm trying to figure out how I can fit as many board games as possible into Carry On. I'm gonna have to really.
Well, that's one
condense
carry-on
them.
right there.
It's $45.
I'm gonna have to
Almost be cheaper just to buy another copy there.
seriously. So, luckily Seattle's got a pretty good board gaming scene. I'm sure I can find a board game bar somewhere that might have it, or meet up with some other group of gamers that has it. I'm gonna look for somebody else to have it and play there, but we'll see. So if you're a listener in Seattle, let us know, or let me know, because I'll be in Seattle in a couple weeks.
I won't care.
Now,
I will.
I'll have
Anyway,
my copy here.
So yeah, that sums up our review of Feast for Odin.
Yep.
Jeff and I love it, which is as expected for our gaming styles. And Zach, you enjoy
I like it,
but
I like it, but I definitely I don't feel I need to own it. So
I just keep wanting to play it more until
Yep.
I'm good at it.
yeah, absolutely want to get this to the table more.
Yeah.
But alrighty, so let's wrap this back end of the episode up pretty quick because this is going to be a long one, even with a lot of editing. But
We'll just take all of the drinking game part and
I
turn
might-
it into its own episode.
Yep. Might just cut that out and put that as a bonus. Like, hey, do you want to hear us talk about drinking games? Here you go. It's 30 minutes of bullshit. All right. Anyway, we got 2 emails. So, Jeff, you want to crack these off?
Emails at milehighgameguys.com if you would like to email us.
Yes. And then we'll read them because that's what we do.
First, from Mike, one of our 2 listeners that email us.
One of our 2 legitimate fans who
fans,
doesn't just talk shit to us.
Yeah.
Titled Twilight Imperium! Exclamation point.
Just one exclamation.
Just one. Yeah, he
Okay.
just put one in there. Maybe he'll put 2 next time.
Maybe.
What's going to happen? He's just going to put 2 in next time. He says, I'm so glad you guys did the 2-parter for Twilight Imperium 3rd edition, TI3. I have a buddy who owns it with expansions, and it's pretty much been a once-a-year game for us, which seems just about right. I
Yes.
agree.
100%.
Maybe 6 months if you played without the expansions. We always come away with great stories, absolutely, 100%. And it was great to hear about your epic 11.5-hour battle, emotionally and almost physically.
I was perusing some of the video that we shot from that.
I'm sure it's good.
I can't wait to put this together and do an episode.
I need to fucking bring my
It's
hard
good.
drive to get that from you.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be a good little video.
A question for the show. Just wondering how many games from your collections would you consider on the epic scale? Does the length of your play/epicness factor into whether or not you buy a game?
All right, so let's pause there and let's tackle that because then he has another question.
Yeah.
So, for my collection, I mean, I might consider Feast to be pushing epic just because of the sheer amount of options and pieces.
And it's a game that will absolutely get faster the more the people that play it over and over, that you could hit that 30 minutes per player.
I would say that game length doesn't necessarily equate to epicness. To some extent, with some games it does, but for me, epicness has everything to do with how the game feels. Games feel epic. You can have a game that plays in 30 minutes and feels epic. There's not
Runebound
many, but
3rd edition is pretty epic in scale.
yeah.
I would say for me, Heroescape, just because how big I can make it fill this entire table and have things up to here.
Yeah.
A foot. He was
a foot.
holding his hand a foot above the table.
Yeah, I was holding my foot a foot. No, I would say Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones,
Yes.
but I don't own it.
Yeah, I really enjoy that one, and you definitely get a lot of those stories. Those would be the two. I think maybe Eldritch Horror. I think that'll depend.
Yeah, it's getting there for sure.
Mm-hmm. I would say Tales of the Arabian Nights, just because of mainly the stories that you get from it. Yeah.
I would say for me, I've probably got 2 games that I would in my collection that I would say for sure regularly feel kind of epic. I don't get it to the table nearly enough, but Eclipse always kind of feels that way. There's almost always some kind of good story about betrayal or backstabbing or just weird tile draws and things that happen in Eclipse. And it's another game. It does take a while, and you feel like you're building kind of a civilization. It's a much more Euro-y game than Twilight, but that one feels epic. And then Zombicide, if you go all out on a big map with a bunch of people, Zombicide can feel epic. There can be some cool things that happen in Zombicide.
The best way I can compare Twilight Imperium with expansions and without expansions is season 1 of Zombicide versus season 3 of Zombicide.
Yeah. Yes.
That's fair.
Where you just get fucking crazy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then Black Plague took it to a whole nother level.
Yep.
Those abominations got ridiculous in Black Plague. Whatever.
As I had mentioned earlier, length of play is starting to hurt my purchasing. Like I've got Scythe, which is super epic, super long, and I'm starting to turn away from games that are just too long because I have so many other games that are that length that I would rather play currently.
I didn't feel like Scythe was that epic. It was a good game. Like I didn't hate it, but it didn't feel epic.
I think for me, that's when you're playing with a giant board and you're playing with 5 people, and I can see where you're coming from. But I think I can see why people would say that it would be that.
Yeah.
I would also probably consider throwing Werewolf. I've had some epic games of Werewolf. And not because they last long, but just because of the way things play out. Like situations where you have like the werewolves in the night, they kill the lover, and then the person's lover was the hunter, so then the hunter kills somebody and they kill like the young wolf, so then the next night the werewolves kill twice, but then they kill the plague guy, and so then they can't
There's a guy
eat
that
the
just
following
explodes
night.
and kills whoever's sitting next to
And so just
them.
weird chains and like the way the storylines. I think for me, the thing that makes a game epic is if it's something where like later on I can be sitting around with people who played and we've got a story that we can laugh and talk about. Like, oh, dude, like this happened and then that happened and then you betrayed me. You know, like for the last episode with the Twilight. You know, like especially when you see the videos when they come out. Like every time I went in that other room, I was like, so Zach and I are still tentative.
Everyone.
Zach and I are still tentative allies, but I keep expecting him to betray me. Zach and I are allies,
rightfully
but
so.
His betrayal is inevitable. And then, fuck it, Zach betrayed me, son of a bitch. You know, and those are the kinds of things that make a game epic. So, I'd say I've got 3 that I would for sure consider epic. Other ones can have epic plays of a relatively simple game, but the games themselves aren't that epic. So,
I've definitely been shying away.
yeah. And then what was Mike's last question here?
I've tended to shy away from longer games because they are tough to get to the table. Absolutely.
Yep.
I've been thinking about picking up Zia. Any of you have any experience with that one? I have zero. None. I have no idea what that game is.
So it's Zia Legends of a Drift System. It was a Kickstarter game 2 years ago, I think.
Yes.
Maybe early 2015.
Something like that.
But that one definitely had a huge space theme thing, and you could do a bunch of different things. Now, you said you've played that one once, right?
Yeah, so I played it at, I want to say, I know it was at David's house in his basement. I think it was one of our Christmas game nights because we've done game night every Wednesday for almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
And this is the ones where it was like on Christmas and we couldn't find a place that was open. So we did it at his house, but it was right after the Kickstarter had finally shipped, and so the person who brought it, they had just gotten it. I think they'd maybe played once, but they definitely hadn't played enough to really have a firm grasp on the rules. So rule explanation took a little while, and then gameplay took even longer. And it was one of those situations where when I sat down, I didn't realize what I was getting into. I thought I was getting into like a relatively quick little simple 4X, like looking at the game and everything. It seemed easier than the way it ended up playing out. I don't know if maybe it is really easy if it's explained well. And there were other games I wanted to play that night, and I wanted to interact with my friends because it was like Christmas or Christmas Eve. And so my only play of it was not ideal.
Right.
I recall it did have some interesting mechanisms. It was fun. I I would definitely give it another shot, but I'm not sure that this is a game that I would want to play regularly or that I would ever want to own.
I believe it has a decent amount of randomness in it in some fashion.
Yeah, I can't hardly remember.
Yeah, so I think in terms of movement or something, I'm not sure.
Yeah. My impressions of it are very vague.
I've heard good things, though. I know some people really like it.
Considering is at one of my really good friend's houses in his basement, I was probably drinking even more heavily than normal.
Yeah.
So that probably taints my memory. And then, like, it was at least 2 years ago. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly.
So basically, we don't have a good.
Yeah,
knowledge
sorry,
of it.
Mike. We don't have a great answer for you.
It's well reviewed.
Yeah,
on
it's well
Board Game Geek.
reviewed. I've seen a decent amount of people really like it. Like I said, so it's definitely look at do a bit of research.
Top 200.
yeah.
I mean, that's pretty high up.
Yeah, it is. Watch some reviews. Maybe even look at a playthrough, like a little bit of it, just to see if that's something that you could get interested in.
Yeah. If you do pick it up, Mike, and you're ever up in Denver, I will play with you.
Yeah.
So. All right. Next
All right.
email.
We have an Mile High Game Guys hater email.
There we go.
He's back.
Or she. Stop being sexist.
Yeah, we don't know.
Jesus.
We're getting. I think
I'm almost 100. I will be stunned if it's not a he.
we're almost in a Holmes-esque clues that we
Yeah.
have to pick out from
Yeah.
these various emails to who
Yeah.
this person is. So, aw, you missed me! Exclamation point. Only one. It continues. It's weird. I just emailed you last week, but it's not good enough? Fine. Don't worry. I still think you suck. I don't like your jerk-off name. I don't like your jerk-off faces. I don't like your jerk-off behavior. And I don't like you jerk-offs. Do I make myself clear?
So
This is a quote from Big Lebowski, if no one knows.
Yeah.
Esque.
yeah, as soon as I read that, I was just like, that seems familiar. Whereas Adrian, you didn't realize
No,
it, right?
I didn't.
You're just like, he's being really mean.
He's using jerk-off a lot. Why does he do that?
I was like, wait, I thought this was somebody that we knew and that he kept listening because he doesn't actually hate us. He's just messing with us because he's a friend, but that wasn't very friendly. And then, no.
Stay
now
out of
it's-
my jerk-off city.
Yep.
But that's
Then-
easily explainable by the fact that I've seen Big Lebowski.
But
A
will
couple
he
times,
throw
but
a
I think it's
coffee cup
overrated.
into our foreheads? Is the
I hope not,
I
because that looks like it hurts.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Fascist.
But this person needs to come to game night so they can pick up the freaking game.
Seriously.
Has it been in your? It's been in your bag. It's almost
No,
literally.
No,
wasted
it's
space.
been here because he didn't want someone else.
Yeah, I'm not going to take it because I don't want somebody to accidentally be like, "Oh,
take the
Adrian
shrink wrap off."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Adrian brought a new game to game night. I'm going to open this up and play it.
That new game code makes pictures.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, hater, you gotta come to game night. You're gonna have to reveal yourself sooner. Or
So
later.
they're a Harry Potter and Big Lebowski fan.
Yes.
Which
And then also Ticket to Ride Europe. So,
so it could still just basically be anybody
Anyone.
at game night.
yep. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that was like a good episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 hours
Uh,
and 27 minutes.
If we, I mean, there's
At the
just-
very least, I know we're getting
Pre-edit.
15 minutes out.
Yeah, pre-edit. There's
Andrew, I'm sorry you had to listen to this over 4 days.
Yes.
we're just going for that secret cabal length, building up to it.
But
Yeah.
still doing it weekly for some
Still
reason.
doing it weekly.
Still no Joe Rogan length.
No.
No, good God. Well, yeah, dude does it for a living,
Yeah.
and we don't. This is a passion project.
Passion project.
Starving artists over here.
Passion.
But anyway, so thanks for tuning in. I know this has been a long episode, probably regardless of how the editing goes. If you listen to this episode and there was nothing about drinking, that's because I spun it off into a separate episode, so look for that. If you heard a lot about drinking, then it's
Ignore what he's saying right now.
yeah. If you would like to get a hold of us, as Jeff mentioned before the email segment, you can email us at emails@milehighgameguys.com. We are all three pretty active on Twitter. I tweet under our podcast Twitter at MHGameGuys.
I'm at Zach_MHGG.
And I'm Jeff_MHGG.
We also have Instagram at Mile High Game Guys, Facebook.com/Mile High Game Guys, and a Board Game Geek Guild for Mile High Game Guys. So feel free to get a hold of us on any of those social media things. If there's a social media thing you would like us to be on, let us know, and we can
Unless
probably
it's
try and-
Snapchat. I don't
try
want to
and
do
work on it.
Snapchat.
Yeah.
Or MySpace. I don't know. Whatever.
Friendster. I don't know if those are a thing anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
LinkedIn. Are we
Yes.
professional enough for LinkedIn?
We'll see.
We would also greatly appreciate iTunes, Stitcher reviews. They help get our podcast out to other listeners. So if you enjoy us, maybe somebody else would too. So go over and review us on iTunes or Stitcher, and we'll probably read those also. So feel free to talk shit on our football, well, my football talk or my snowboarding talk.
It's almost
or-
over. Not the snowboarding, but the football.
The snowboarding's
Yeah.
not.
No.
No. Snowboarding's going to go till
Yeah.
like June.
Yeah. As much as you talk about snowboarding, I'll talk about Blood Bowl.
I hope you keep winning, Jeff. It's much more
I'm-
interesting to
I-
hear you talk about winning Blood Bowl.
This next game's gonna be rough. I have some write-ups about Blood Bowl actually that are multi-paragraph that we might give you access to at some point that I find entertaining.
We can post them on the page,
Yeah,
the web page, or on the Facebook, or the.
Somewhere.
some in-universe
VGG.
writings of how
Yeah.
the games went.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning into this ridiculously long episode. We are nearing the end of the year, so we'll have some special things coming up for you
Absolutely.
here. Some look backs on our first year of podcasting.
half year.
Half
of
year.
podcasting. Our first calendar,
Yeah, our first count.
our podcasting in 2016 and our gaming in 2016 and just our feelings on 2016. For all of its bullshit, it's had some highlights. So we'll talk about those in an upcoming episode. Yeah, thanks for listening. I've been Adrian.
I'm still Zach.
And I'm Jarl Jeff.
And thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch us next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.